Britain is at the greatest risk of missile attack since the end of the Cold War, according to a study by the Council on Geostrategy think tank, The Times reports. Russian submarines and warships stationed off the coast of Norway pose the greatest threat to the British mainland, analysts say. The authors of the study recalled that the Russian Northern Fleet has 800 cruise missiles that could be used to attack Britain. Russia also has Kalibr missiles with a range of over 2,000 kilometers. Experts note that Britain currently does not have enough air defense to protect its military bases, let alone major cities. The missile threat is the most serious since the end of the Cold War, the report warned. At the same time, the country's Prime Minister ordered a strategic defence review to examine the British Army's vulnerabilities. If the review is published in full, it is likely to highlight the lack of land-based missile defence systems in the armed forces. Britain, which relies on its Type 45 destroyers to shoot down ballistic missiles, will be struggling to repel the kind of attacks Iran carried out on Israel last year, while Russia has been raining missiles down on Ukraine almost every night, The Times said. In its study, the Geostrategy Board said it may be sensible to strengthen the Royal Navy's missile defences given the cost of buying new land-based systems, but in an ideal world, land-based missile defense systems should also be acquired. The report added that Russia had a limited stockpile of land-based ballistic missiles that could reach Britain, but warned that Russia, China and Iran were investing in hypersonic and ballistic missile technology. As the range increases, the British Isles will increasingly come under potential threat, they concluded. So experts are advising Britain to buy a few more batteries of existing air defense systems such as the Sky Sabre to protect vulnerable military bases from cruise missile and drone attacks. Another immediate priority should be the acquisition of anti-aircraft guns to shoot down drones, similar to the German Gepard system used in Ukraine, the article noted. Also, William Freer, a research fellow at the Council on Geostrategy, noted, Britain's geographic position gives it clear advantages, but the missile threat is growing. Russia's Northern Fleet is of greatest concern, but the developing missile capabilities of adversaries such as the People's Republic of China and Iran must also be taken into account. The UK's key military infrastructure, which is needed to support its armed forces, is currently too vulnerable and must be the first priority, followed by the protection of overseas bases, including the British Indian Ocean Territory, and deployed British troops.
The State Duma declared that Russia will not agree to a 30-day truce, as the United States could rearm Ukraine during this period. Deputy Viktor Sobolev emphasized that the truce is absolutely unacceptable. He believes that the ceasefire would only benefit the armed forces of Ukraine. Sobolev considers the temporary ceasefire absolutely unacceptable. According to him, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin also spoke about this. The Russian MP repeated that the ceasefire is only beneficial to Ukraine, as in 30 days it will be able to regroup, strengthen its troops and receive additional drones. This only plays into the hands of Ukrainians. This is how many drones were attacked at night today, we don't need it at all, Sobolev added. Against the backdrop of US-Ukraine negotiations in Saudi Arabia, Russian Foreign Ministry Press Secretary Maria Zakharova stated that Moscow's position will not be formed abroad, so news from Russia should be monitored. Zakharova stated that the main news will allegedly come from Moscow, therefore, she believes that one should follow the news not from Jeda, but from the Russian capital. The formation of the position of the Russian Federation does not occur abroad due to some agreements or efforts of some parties. The formation of the position of the Russian Federation occurs within the Russian Federation, said the representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry. At the talks in Jeda on March 11, Ukraine expressed its readiness to accept the U.S. proposal to immediately introduce a temporary 30-day ceasefire. It can be extended by mutual agreement of the parties, subject to acceptance and simultaneous implementation by the Russian Federation. The representatives of both countries highly praised the bravery of the Ukrainian people in defending their nation and agreed that now is the time to initiate the process of establishing a lasting peace. The Ukrainian delegation once again expressed the deep gratitude of the Ukrainian people to President Trump, the U.S. Congress, and the American people for enabling significant progress toward peace. Ukraine has declared its readiness to accept the U.S. proposal for the immediate implementation of a temporary 30-day ceasefire, which may be extended by mutual agreement, provided it is accepted and simultaneously implemented by the Russian Federation. The United States will inform Russia that reciprocity on its part is crucial to achieving peace. In addition, the Ukrainian and U.S. teams discussed the importance of humanitarian efforts as part of the peace process, particularly during the aforementioned ceasefire, including the exchange of prisoners of war, the release of detained civilians, and the return of forcibly displaced Ukrainian children. People on the streets of Russia's capital were skeptical about the prospect of a possible ceasefire in Ukraine. Russia shouldn't wait for anything. We need to go on until victory in the special military operation, said Moscow resident Nikolai. According to Associated Press, another local, Natalia, called the Ukrainian army terrorists, saying, "What can we agree on with them?" Kiev signaled on Tuesday after talks in Saudi Arabia that it was open to a US-backed 30-day ceasefire in the war with Russia, pending Moscow's agreement. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Wednesday that it's important not to get ahead of the question of responding to the ceasefire proposal. He told reporters that Moscow is awaiting detailed information about it from the US and suggested that Russia must get that first before it can take a position. Meanwhile, U.S. arms deliveries to Ukraine resumed Wednesday, officials said, a day after the Trump administration lifted its suspension of military aid and intelligence sharing for Kyiv in its fight against Russia's invasion. The administration's decision marked a sharp shift from only a week ago, when it imposed the measures in an apparent effort to push Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to enter talks to end the war with invading Russian forces. The suspension of U.S. assistance came days after Zelensky and President Donald Trump argued about the conflict in a tense White House meeting. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who led the U.S. delegation to the talks in Jeda, said Washington would present the ceasefire offer to the Kremlin, which has so far opposed anything short of a permanent end to the conflict without accepting any concessions.
Нас еще не было на переговорах, мы еще свое слово не говорили, поэтому это пока вот разговоры ни о чем, можно даже вот так сказать.
Добрый день, позвольте несколько вопросов.
Пока те не добьются того, что хотят, и пока мы не добьемся, чего хотим, все и будет продолжаться. России ждать нечего, надо продолжать до победного конца. До победы во всем.
Все будет так же, как летали дроны. Я думаю, так же и будут, потому что, там террористические группировки, о чем с ними можно договариваться?
The Kremlin has been very clear that it is not interested in a ceasefire. Which doesn't mean that it's not interested in the ceasefire, but it does mean that it's not likely to agree to a ceasefire without extracting various things along the way.
Да.